Good Tuesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon out in Berea. It was the first of 3 days in a row where the media will be out and allowed to watch Brown's mandatory minicamp, no longer voluntary, mandatory minicamp. Let's take a look as the quarterback's getting some work. Kenny Pickett throwing, and again, just helmets and shorts, still no pads. Joe Flacco didn't do a lot really in team drills, but individual drills, different story. There's Dylan Gabriel, one of the rookies. Both of the rookies got a lot of work in team drills today. That was Dylan Gabriel. Here is Shaduer Sanders. Mandatory minicamp, so the Browns' stealth receiver, Deontay Johnson, is there on the field running routes. They really need this guy to step up and do what he potentially can do as a wide receiver. There he catches a pass from Shaduer Sanders. Myles Garrett also there, looking quick and in shape like you knew he would. Again, they will have the same kind of thing tomorrow where it's open to the media, and they will continue to work. But a good look at mandatory minicamp. On the subject of Myles Garrett, last week it was Jim Schwartz that said, with a big contract comes great responsibility. Myles Garrett was asked about that in that big contract.
With great power comes great responsibility. So that would make him my Uncle Ben, right? I look forward to having my best season for sure, and I think it's trending that way. It's been really good, and I think everything's pointing in that direction. And I like where we are as a defense unit, really firing, really rolling, and I think it's really clicking as far as the scheme and the plays, especially early on. That's big.
Do you agree with that sentiment that with our
yeah, I do. And responsibilities never change. The powers never change. Today I step forward. Here at this facility, with this organization, I've had an opportunity to step a platform and to set a standard, and I got to continue to be the leader for this team and set that standard.
And we'll hear plenty more from Myles Garrett from today's media availability. Shaduer Sanders did get some team drills, as did Dylan Gabriel. Sanders was asked just what his goals were.
My goal is to be the best teammate and to be as polished as I can be. So in every aspect, I view things as I got time. I got time to be able to grow and mature, and be able to understand the ins and outs of the defenses and be able to get the good insight from the vets in the room. So I look at it as, a plus. Like I got time to actually be able to really have a great understanding. And whenever, it's time for me to play, then it's time for me to play. But I'm not looking too far in the future about all that. I'm looking about every day in practice, because I had some misses out there today that, we got to go in there and correct, about Reed's getting in and out drops a little bit faster from under center. So that's the main thing. I'm focused on the small things, and over time, the big things will happen.
Shaduer Sanders talking about how he's approaching things as they lead into training camp coming up in a little bit over a month. Dylan Gabriel, the other rookie quarterback, was asked about play action. Remember, small in stature, and is he comfortable doing play action?
Yeah, of course. I think, at one point I was the play action, king, I guess. We did a lot of play action, early on, but UCF. But I think, that's just part of it. You'd love to use play action to your advantage, but anyway, in any sense, you got to be present in that moment for that key play and adjust. But definitely have done play action.
Plenty of Browns talk coming up with Fred Greetham as well as Jeff Lloyd. We're going to turn our attention to the Guardians. Guardians opened up a 3-game series against the Reds at Progressive Field last night. It was Luis Ortiz, Wade Miley, the starting pitchers. Second inning, Jake Fraley, a sharp single out into center field, and that will score Will Benson to give the Reds a 1-0 lead. Third inning, TJ Friedel, and this one is not coming back. Gone to the seats in right center, solo home run, made it 2-0 Reds. Third inning, Guardians get things rolling. Angel Martinez, an RBI to left field. That'll score Bo Naylor 2-1. still in the third inning. It's Jose Ramirez at the plate, and Ramirez, a single out into right field. Martinez will score. There was a base running blunder that led to an out, so now 2 outs. Still in the third inning, Carlos Santana, RBI single to center, will score Ramirez. 3-2, the Guardians with the lead. Didn't last long. Jake Fraley hits one to right center. It drops in. No one will get it. Game was tied up at 3. 4-3 Reds. And Will Benson, a sharp single. And that will bring in a run to make it 6-3. Bottom of the 7th, Bo Naylor, his second home run in the last 2 games. But the Guardians drop it 7-4 to the Reds. Ortiz went 4 1/3, gave up 4 runs, 9 hits. Stephen Vogt wants to see things cleaned up all the way around with his team.
I thought he threw strikes tonight. Just wasn't executing. You know, he hung more pitches than he has his previous few outings. Just seemed like he wasn't getting the pitch when he needed to. They did a great job. I mean, they took what we gave them all night long. They were throwing singles out there left and right, hit a couple homers. They just kept the line moving. They, tip your cap to them. They had a great offensive night. Louis wasn't at his best, but, still kept us in the game, gave us a chance. We did not play our brand of baseball tonight at all. This is the first night I've watched us, and we didn't look like ourselves. We need to take better care of the baseball. We need to run the bases better. We need to have better at-bats, and we need to throw more strikes. We haven't been ourselves. We've faced some really tough teams the last few weeks, but we're a really good team too. But tonight was the first night I just felt like we didn't look like us. So stay the course. Get back to being us. We have a lot of guys trying to do too much right now. Back off. Just go play baseball and have fun. That's what makes this team great. That's what makes this group great. We just got to get back to being us.
And game 2 of the series tonight at Progressive Field. Andrew Abbott, lefty with a really good 5-1 record, ERA under 3, will face Slade Ciccone. First pitch will be at 6:40. Again, game 2 of the Reds and Guardians tonight. Time for us to take a quick time out. Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report is up first. We're talking Browns, Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Browns are first up on Sports4CLE. First day of mandatory minicamp that was open to the media. Quarterback Shaduer Sanders with what he thought of his performance today.
I know every day is room for improvement in a lot of different areas in my game, so I never feel, I'll say, full. I'll say I'm always hungry. And it's a lot of aspects in football that you could get better at. It's weight room. It's knowing the plays, it's physically, it's throwing different. You can always get precise on more things. So I feel like I put in my day's work, but I know I'm far from where I want to be.
With that, let's welcome in Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Fred, you were out in Berea today for the festivities. Takeaways from minicamp and what you saw today.
A lot of guys out there. I think 90. I only saw 2 not practicing. I didn't really go over it with a fine-tooth comb, but Cedric Tillman, Michael Woods were in they were just standing with their jerseys on. But no, I think it was good to see the whole group out there, to see Myles Garrett back there and in the group taking turns and talking with Mason Graham and Malik Collins was there for the first time, Deontay Johnson, Jack Conklin, Joel Bitonio, David Njoku. Just to kind of get a semblance of the whole roster. But it was a day with the quarterbacks that, whether it was by design and Stefanski said after practice everything's intentional, so it obviously was by design that it was kind of rookies or young guys' day. Dylan Gabriel and Shaduer Sanders took most of the 7-on-7, 11-on-11, as well as Kenny Pickett. Joe Flacco didn't really take part in 11-on-11, 7-on-7s. And Stefanski said that was by design. The three newer guys are learning the system, and so they wanted to get them as many reps as possible. And you know, did some clips and videos, and Deontay Johnson, having him run around out there, seeing what he could do, and that's really what it is. This is kind of the last shot before they head to training camp for impressing the coaches, and a lot of the planning that they will do for training camp is getting taken care of these 3 days. Jobs aren't going to be won, but jobs could be lost as far as in the pecking order, because when you get to training camp, it's time to get serious. You have games, starting within a couple weeks, and it's go time.
Did you read too much into the order that the quarterbacks took snaps in and those kind of things, or not so much?
Not really. I mean, I believe Stefanski that they, today was designed really, I think, to get the younger guys some team drills. First, really, we saw Gabriel ran a little bit against first team defense and first team offense, and Sanders was more the second team, but he was in team drills. And I think both of them looked pretty good. I think unofficially Sanders was like 10 for 12, had a couple touchdowns. Gabriel wasn't quite as sharp. Pickett, I think had 2 or 3 touchdown passes. I know Gabriel threw one in the corner of the end zone that was a pretty good play. I think it was to Gage Lavardane. But, it kind of runs together. But no, I don't, because in the drills, in the original drills, it was more the same Pickett, Flacco, Gabriel, Sanders, what we've seen. It was obvious that they wanted to get some team reps with, the 2 rookies and throw in Pickett somewhat.
So Dylan Gabriel met with media, was asked just about the makeup of the quarterback room.
Yeah, I think just a diverse room. Diversity and experience, and you just appreciate those guys, because I think what we've done as a room really well is the inability to dwell on the past. We're just extremely present, and I was just curious, does anyone know how much minute like Joe has played in the playoffs? Like the guy's played 606 snaps. Like, this guy knows the game and has done it at a high level. So I think there's a lot of juice in the squeeze, but you got to ask the right questions, and that's what I try to approach every single day.
Did you research,
same with Kenny.
Did you research that on your own, that he came up with, that he had 606 snaps, or did one of the coaches mention it, or what?
Well, I'm not going to walk into a situation not know what I'm walking into. So, I like to know a little bit about my teammates, and I think just in general, if you approach the game as a student, you learn every single day and you improve every single day. So that's just how I've been.
And Fred, it's interesting. I could see a front office and a coach absolutely love that. I mean, that's a perfect answer. That he knew that he did that level of research shows you how prepared he likely was for his pre-draft meetings and those kind of things.
Well, he didn't get to where he is today. He's overcome a lot of obstacles just size-wise, and and I think that's the edge you're looking for, any way you can. So, I think I've been impressed both with Gabriel and Sanders, and I think you can see them improving each and every practice, and I do think that Gabriel is. Well, Stefanski said it. He said they've been, Gabriel and Sanders been like sponges, soaking up everything, with the experience of Flacco. And who wouldn't? I mean, if you want to play in the NFL, the guy's figured out how to play 18 years in the NFL. So that's a tremendous resource, for you to look at to see, what did he do to get there. You
mentioned Deontay Johnson. How important? First of all, What did you notice from him, and how important was it that he's there? And I mean, there's an opportunity in front of him, especially you mentioned Cedric Tillman hasn't played. I imagine it's not hugely serious, but the fact that Cedric Tillman isn't able to undergo drills and missed all that time at the end of last season, it's at least eyebrow raising.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what the injury is, but I think they don't want any setbacks, with a 6-week break until training camp. So they are standing right there, but they're not, participating, Woods and Tillman. And so, yeah, I mean, they really, listen, Dave, I think they really need Johnson to step up and be, a Pro Bowl type player, maybe not to that level, but I think the last year he made the Pro Bowl was 2019, so you got like 4 or 5 years since. He was a very productive player for the Steelers, and then for whatever reason, things kind of went off the rails last year, where he got traded. He ended up getting released 2 more times. He was with 3 teams, and to me, this seems to be like kind of your last shot to make a mark. You mentioned he's there. Yeah, it's mandatory, but he wasn't at the OTAs when we were there. And I did hear he was at the early phases when they were in the classroom, but he wasn't on the field the last couple weeks. And I think it's imperative. I mean, I would do everything I can to impress the coaches. They have a lot of undrafted rookies and first-year guys. They had Jerry Jeudy. If you look at a clip I did on the wide receiver room, and this is without David Bell, Michael Woods, and Cedric Tillman, that there's probably 9-10 receivers. Jeudy was first. Deontay Johnson was dead last, and a lot of guys in between that you probably don't even know too much about him other than Jamari Thrash. And so I think this is very important for him. We're supposed to talk to him tomorrow, maybe get a little insight what went wrong, but you let Elijah Moore walk. He was your second leading receiver from the wide receiver room last year, 61 catches, and you didn't really bring in anybody in the draft or in the first waves of free agency. Deontay Johnson was probably the biggest move, and you didn't make that move until after the draft and just before Moore signed with the Bills. So I think this is very important for him. The Browns really need him or somebody else to step up and be one of the top 3, whether it's Cedric Tillman number 2 or Deontay Johnson number 2, but they need somebody to step up. And if it's not Deontay Johnson, they might have to go get somebody else because, I mean, when you look at Jerry Jeudy, you feel good there. But, boy, if he's injured or goes down, you feel like you are very unproven, very thin at wide receiver. We've been talking about that on this show, and I've been writing about it all off season.
And let's hope he understands that, being Deontay Johnson. We'll see. Fred Greetham and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Miles Garrett. Had a little conversation on the field today with DeJuan Jones. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Miles Garrett on the field today, talking with DeJuan Jones after a break between the offense and defensive lines. This is what he said he was talking to DeJuan Jones about.
I mean, he's just trying to get my bit of my cues, my mindset as far as going against him at that type of position on that side. What made me do what move, what triggered this response, kind of trying to walk through it with them. And help him get rid of some tendencies that he has on that side, and just try to sharpen him up.
So Fred, that side would be left tackle where he was playing, and it's I think it's a good sign. That's what you want to see from DeJuan Jones. He kind of initiated it.
Yeah, he said that he came up to him, started asking questions. That would be Jones. First time Garrett's been on the field, and that means that he wants to be good. He wants to be great, and he's working at it. And who better to go up against every day in practice than Myles Garrett? I mean, if he's not the best defensive end in the NFL, he's right there. And so if Jones can learn how to defend him, I think that he's going to be in pretty good shape. Now, obviously, there's a lot of great pass rushers in the division, or there were, whether TJ Watt or Hendrickson continue. There's always going to be in around the league. And so that's the job, is to protect the quarterback. And I think DeJuan Jones, I posted some video and pictures of him. I think he looks really good. And if he can keep his health and the small sample size, I think that can go a long way. And either way, whether he's the long-term answer at left tackle or right tackle, either side, it bodes well, because he's only 23 years old, and he's got a lot, to learn and to grow. But when he stayed on the field, he's been pretty good. It's just been, he's finished the last 2 years on injury reserve, and he's dropped weight, he's repositioned his body, and he thinks that will really help him. And so if he's now picking the brain of Myles Garrett and learning, ways to defend him, I think that will only bode well.
Yeah, and I would say, and I've said this the last couple of days after thinking about it, they have to solve left tackle especially, but their tackle positions, probably before you get your quarterback. You don't want to be searching for starting left tackles protecting the blind side of a young guy you identify as a franchise quarterback. That's not good.
Yeah, right. And they obviously took Jed Wills 10 overall, expecting him to be that guy, and he's not even playing this year. And so they have the 2 first-round picks. There's a lot of questions if one of the rookies, or either of them, or even Pickett, establish themselves as what you would call the franchise quarterback, then you don't have to use those picks or trade up necessarily to get a quarterback. That can give you ammunition to get a first-round tackle, whether it be left or right, as well as other positions, wide receiver and some of the other ones we talked about. So that would solve a big problem. Everybody felt like DeJuan Jones had, after his rookie year, looked like he could be the right tackle, and a lot of people didn't think even Jack Conklin would come back. He did come back. But now with DeJuan Jones, if he can establish, like we said, and solve that problem at left tackle, that would be marquee, and that would be huge. So we'll see what happens, but so far so good. Everything is pointing up for him.
So Mason Graham and Carson Schlesinger, Graham in the first round, Schlesinger in the second. How did they look, kind of incorporating with the veterans for the first time today?
Well, I saw Graham kind of hanging with Garrett, and I think this was a chance for him to start to get to know him, and I mean, they can work tandem and lockstep. I think it will help both players, but especially even Garrett. The center can't double team if Graham can eat him up and go right up the middle and get the quarterback. So, all the way around, I thought he looked pretty good. And the drills, again, it's non-contact. Schlesinger, again, he looks like a football player, in the little we've seen him running around sideline to sideline. They identified those 2 guys, the top 2 picks, when they were really an offensive challenge team, and we thought most of their picks would be on offense, and they ended up being 5 of the 7 picks were on offense. But their top 2 were guys they identified in Graham and Schlesinger. They're expecting them to be starters and are big contributors right from the get-go. So I think they look pretty good, and I think this is an acclimation period for them into the team and getting them tuned up so they can hit the ground running when training camp starts. starts, because like I said, there's not a lot of time from when they start training camp now in the NFL until you kick it off in the preseason, August 8th.
So how good do you think this defense can be? You get a look at it on paper, and how concerned are you with the secondary? Greg Newsome and Martin Emerson did not have great years a season ago.
I'm concerned, with the secondary, because you didn't really address safety. You let Juan Thornhill walk, and you had Rodney McLeod retire, and DeAnthony Bell signed in free agency with the Seahawks. So 3 of your 5 safeties are gone. You have Grant Delpit, the returning starter, and you're counting on Ronnie Hickman to step in and be the starter. They signed 2 veterans in Rayshon Jenkins and DeMonte Kazee right at the end of after the draft. And so I think Hickman's the guy. He's the key. They need a ball hawking safety, and Jim Schwartz talked about him and thinks he can be that. But the corners, yes. I mean, other than Denzel Ward, the other 2, we thought maybe Travis Hunter would be able to lock down 2 of the positions, cornerback and wide receiver, and they really didn't address either. And so when you look at this, I think it's all kind of works hand in hand, but it starts up front with a pass rush. By getting Mason Graham and Malik Collins to go with Isaiah McGuire, who they feel is really ascending, and Garrett, that allows the cornerbacks not to be on their own as long. I think 2 years ago they had better years and the defense was first because you had a little better pass rush. And so I think they identified that, and that's what the key will be, is how quickly Mason Graham and Schlesinger and some of these guys can impact, especially Malik Collins and Graham up front in the middle, and see what Isaiah McGuire can do on the other side along with Okoronkwo and Alex Wright. But yeah, I mean, they're built to have pressure, and if they don't have pressure, I don't know who the corners, are going to be able to cover. But because they did not address cornerback, that tells me they're relying on the 3 that they had from last year. Nobody really knows what they think of Cameron Mitchell and, Miles Harden, who was hurt last year. Are they able to step up and play at a higher level than Emerson or Newsome? I don't think so right now, but we'll see. We'll see what happens when they get to training camp. But yeah, they definitely need, both those guys are in contract years. Newsome's in the 5th-year option. He's getting $13 million. And Emerson's in the last year of his rookie deal. So both of them are in contract years. So they're very motivated to have big years, not only for the Browns, but the future. If neither of them do, that cornerback room, we might be talking about a first-round cornerback next year as well.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Now I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
At the Ohio Lottery, we make Keno fun your way. So go on, pick your wager. Will it be $1, $2, $10, or more? Your call. Then it's as easy as picking up to 10 numbers. Use any inspiration you like. You can even tag on the booster for a chance to boost your winnings up to 10 times. Every few minutes across Ohio, 20 out of 80 possible numbers are drawn. And if enough of yours match, you win. Keno is always fun your way.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, love the show. Just a quick comment. Sad to hear the Browns won't bring Nick Chubb back. They want to say it's financial. They want to say it's due to his injuries. I call BS on that because you keep letting Deshaun Watson hang around like he's going to somehow lead you somewhere. I don't care how much money they gave him. He's been injured every year, and then he was on the suspension. So to me, I'd rather in a million years keep Nick Chubb over Deshaun Watson, setting a bad precedent for the Haslams in the front office. Go Browns.
As always, appreciates all of the voicemails, Fred. It is not a surprise. People are not happy that Nick Chubb is with the Texans, and we'll have a little bit more on that. I get it. they're trying to get younger. I think what they're telling you more than anything is this roster needs to get younger. And that might tell you they're thinking they won't come out and say rebuilding, but they feel like they're rebuilding.
Yeah, it's a shame. I wrote about it yesterday. I think it's sad, with Nick Chubb. He needs 431 yards to pass Leroy Kelly. He had over 330 yards last year, and he wasn't even a shell of himself. I think in the second year coming back from this injury that I think if anybody comes back stronger, it'll be Nick Chubb. And you wish him the best down with the Texans. Yeah, I really thought there was a place for him. I know that when Jerome Ford, they went to him and asked him to take a pay cut down to $1.75 million. He's in the last year of his contract. They obviously, I think, look at him as a third down back. I don't know. He hasn't established himself as the bell cow in his 2 years replacing Chubb, but I still think most teams carry four running backs. I really think Chubb could have been that guy, third or fourth, even if he isn't ready to be the workload over Pierre Strong. I mean, Pierre Strong does a lot on special teams. The way they use the expanded practice squad now, he definitely could have been on the practice squad, meaning Strong, and brought up if he had a role on game days, in the, as far as special teams. So it's sad. I think Chubb, is the heart and soul of this group. I know they talked to him before the draft. I still think there was room for him. I don't think they want to cut him, but I really think that he could be as productive as a Pierre Strong or maybe even Jerome Ford, but that ship has kind of sailed.
Yeah.
So, all things being equal, Judkins and Sampson, I don't think they expected to get the second guy as high.
Yep.
Both those running backs were drafted or acquired higher than any back that Andrew Berry's brought in. Prior to those two, the highest asset used to get one was Jerome Ford, and that was a fifth-round pick. And so he hasn't used it in free agency, trades. It's all been, in the draft here because Nick Chubb was here before Andrew Berry took over. So all things being equal, I think Judkins and Sampson are the future. I think that they could even use Jerome Ford to start the season and then quickly pivot to the rookies.
Yep. So here it is. Nick Chubb in uniform with the Houston Texans today. Wearing number 21. So there it is. Nick Chubb in another uniform other than the Browns. Myles Garrett was asked today about Nick Chubb.
Love Nick. I think a lot of the guys who are in this locker room still feel the same way as I do. It crushed us to see him get injured, have to battle through, and then it happen again. So we want the very best for him. Happy to see him still able to play, still able to do his thing. Want to see him go back to being the player that he was and have a smile on his face, continue to ball out.
And Fred, that would be universal from his teammates too. So again, it may have been a matter of Nick Chubb wanted a bigger role than the Browns were going to guarantee him too.
Well, that's the thing. He understands, I think, coming off the injury, you don't know what you're going to get. The only thing I can say is the Browns, he was working out, rehabbing, as I understand, and they've seen him. I don't know, where he stands, but if he stands, good enough to pass a physical, and the Texans think he can be their number 2 back, I surely think he could have been a tremendous role model for Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson. You can turn it over to him after this year, but they decided to turn it over, from the get-go. So, yeah, I feel bad. I feel like he's one of the funnest, most humble guys I've ever covered, and you wanted to see him finish his career with the Browns, and it surely seemed like financially signed for $2.5 million with incentives. He played for that with the Browns last year. So I don't know his side. I know he wanted to finish with the Browns, but when he saw the two rookies drafted highly, he probably saw his role would be limited to third or fourth back. And if he has a chance to resurrect his career, you can't blame him, but you surely think you could have got him. I think if you had signed him before the draft and got that done, you might not have drafted the second running back.
So back to Myles Garrett. Garrett was asked about those trade demands that he made in the offseason and kind of if he talked to his teammates about them.
For sure. Talk to the guys, and they understand. It's a business, and we love what we do, and I love this team, and he understands that I was trying to do what's best for me, and after talking with him, and like I said, months ago, talking with AB and Kev, what's best for me and what's best for his team, eventually that aligned, and we looking forward to the future of this team and how we can achieve the goals that we want to.
And Fred, people are wondering how are the teammates? It's a business. You go out and you try to get as much money as you can. So teammates don't get into other guys' contracts ever.
Yeah, I mean, $160 million will change your view, but I don't know what he's gonna say. At this point, he accepted it. He said a lot of. We all probably disagree with what he said. At the Super Bowl, you didn't have to make your demands that public and do that. You threw your team under the bus. But all you have to do is look at Nick Chubb. I talked to him at Greenbrier the summer in 23, just before the season, when he ended up, only playing 2 years and had that devastating injury. And he was getting paid. He was like the second highest paid running back. But a lot of the running backs weren't getting it. And he said, hey, my career could be over. I could be in the same boat a year from now. Well, it was pretty similar, the reason, it's a cruel business. Life expectancy in the NFL is 3.3 years. So, the teammates understand that they if they were in his shoes, they'd probably maybe handle things a little different, but they want to get paid as well, or they wouldn't be moving team to team like they do nowadays.
Fred Greetham, thanks so much for hustling back from Berea, being part of the show. Appreciate it. As always, great stuff. Thanks, Fred.
Yeah, all the time, Dave. Thanks for having me on.
Fred Greetham, make sure to check him out. He is the senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Always good Browns coverage. Coming up, Jeff Lloyd from Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. We're still talking Browns. Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Colin Cowherd from The Herd on FS1 with an interesting read of the Browns quarterback competition.
Shaduer Sanders has two things going for him. And don't kid yourself, this is how the league works. The owner of the Cleveland Browns, Jimmy Haslam, is really impulsive. He drafted Johnny Manziel over better quarterbacks. He drafted Baker Mayfield. He signed Deshaun Watson to a ridiculous guaranteed deal despite all sorts of allegations personally against him. Horrible contract. Probably the league's worst contract. And in a quarterback room with zero star power, except Shaduer Sanders, he's going to get a chance. And, this is a owner. They don't have the Steelers roster or legacy. They're not as well run as Pittsburgh, and they don't have Joe Burrow. So that's the first thing. There's a lot of belief in the NFL that Jimmy Haslam is the reason that of all the teams, Cleveland finally drafted Shaduer Sanders. He is desperate to be recognized and for star power. The second thing Cleveland has going for it, Shaduer has going for it, is Cleveland's roster is the weakest easily in the division, and the early schedule is brutal. Not only are 5 of the first 6 teams they face playoff teams, but the first 5 teams they play are all top 10 offenses, and there's a lot of flashy quarterbacks. Jordan Love and Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. So you think old Joe Flacco, dull Kenny Pickett, small Dylan Gabriel, when the team's getting beat 33-17, and the quarterback for the Browns looks small and old and average.
Now let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd from Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. Jeff, I the desperation is because they want to win. It's not because they want noise. It's not. You can say that the owner's desperate. Yep, he's desperate to win.
Well, I think he's also, they're trying to put some life into this position. There were plenty of fans who just said, hey, I'm going to root for everything but the quarterback. There were plenty of fans who said, I don't want to watch this team right now. And there were plenty of fans who said, well, I'm a Browns fan diehard. So, I'm going to hope it works. It didn't work out for anybody. But if you look at Shaduer Sanders, the thing that makes him, in my opinion, the guy to kind of hang your hat on, root for in this situation, he shouldn't have gone in the 5th round. I think we can all agree with that. If you're telling me, short term, I'm looking at Shaduer Sanders or Dylan Gabriel, Shaduer Sanders, in my opinion, was the better quarterback coming out of college. Kenny Pickett, we're hoping that maybe in Kenny Pickett's 3rd stop, we're getting some sort of, and I can't believe we're going to start using this as a verb, some sort of Sam Darnold type of thing, because this is now going to be the hope for every reclamation quarterback. And Joe Flacco's 40 years old. I mean, yeah, you can maybe have hope for maybe part this season, maybe, hopefully, all of it. But if you're looking for what could be hopefully the short-term solution that leads to a long-term solution, in my opinion, it's just Shaduer Sanders. And there are benefits that can come from that. Shaduer Sanders is on a 5th-round contract. You look at the money the San Francisco 49ers were able to spend. Granted, they didn't win a Super Bowl, but the amount of money they were able to spend elsewhere because Brock Purdy was making no money. I think with each passing day, you see Shaduer Sanders get a little better, get a little more comfortable, starting to work now to check downs. And, when my number 1 option isn't open, let me get off of him as quickly as I can and get down to, 2nd, 3rd, 4th guy, in the passing tree. He's the guy, ideally for Browns fans, that you want to hang your hat on right now, because I think he's the one that carries maybe the most legitimacy for a short-term answer and possibly a long-term answer.
The thing is, I would say, I get that. I don't think it's going to be game 1, and it might not be until the bye week or week 10. Here's the other thing. You have to sell to the veterans who have been through what they went through last year, that you are trying to win football games. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of guys that are packing it in early.
But in the same respect, though, what do these guys think of Kenny Pickett?
Yeah.
Yes, there might be a lot of faith in that locker room for Joe Flacco, because look, there's guys.
Yeah.
And look, if a guy like Myles Garrett said, "Hey, I got to the playoffs 2 years ago because of Joe Flacco," that's going to mean something to the guys who weren't there. But to the Joe Batonios, to the Myles Garretts, the Wyatt Tellers, that's going to mean something. The thing, and I kind of agree with you, I don't think necessarily that either rookie would be probably in play to start week 1. But the veteran that does start week 1, it's going to have to be about winning. It's also going to be how the team offense looks overall, because, and a lot of people think that the Browns won't contend in 2025. And maybe there's a good possibility to the fact that, they won't be knocking on a playoff door in 25. If that's the case, then you're just spinning your tires by playing Kenny Pickett or Joe Flacco. Because, I'm not saying anything in 2025 is going to give you a long-term answer on either Shaduer Sanders. And to be fair, Dylan Gabriel, I don't think you're going to have a long-term answer either way. But you at least want, some sort of idea on those two guys, as opposed to Joe Flacco, who will be 41 next season, or as opposed to Kenny Pickett, who has no contractual standing with this team after the 2025 season. And I agree, though. I wouldn't run either rookie. And I keep saying this, and maybe I'll change my mind because I think I'm changing my mind quicker on Shaduer Sanders than I thought I would. But that's probably the guy you're looking at right now. And, I'll be honest, and the other thing with the veterans is look, they're there every day. They're at these OTAs. They're at these mini camps. They will be there all July long. They'll know. They'll know whether or not they believe, that Shaduer or Dylan, are showing that they're on an accelerated path.
Yeah, without question. They'll know before the media knows, and
no
in
doubt.
Some instances before the coaches know, because they're the ones that are out there seeing it. All right, Shaduer Sanders met with media today. Asked about going to Joe Flacco for advice.
Just how to get through the reads quicker and those type of things. And I asked him, hey, let me know what you think, what I need to do. So it's like he's seen it, he played it, and he's a pro, So it's like I'll be dumb, I'll be a fool to not get insight for somebody that had success over all the years that he had.
And again, that's Joe Flacco's going to give him those answers. He's not hiding the answer key to the test on the rookies.
Well, here's also, the thing now, and, and this is something that probably sadly got off the beaten path during the draft process. The one thing that you talked about when you talked about, the Colorado Rocky players, and of course, the Colorado Buffalo players, whether it was Hunter and of course, whether it was Shaduer Sanders, it was, their love and their respect for everything that went in to playing this game. And everything everybody said universally was these guys are legitimately all about ball. Neither guy really parties much. They may have some hobbies. They're serious. They understand the work, the dedication, the time that needs to be committed to this. And look, Deion Sanders, obviously had a little bit of a relationship with the Baltimore Ravens franchise before Joe Flacco got there. But darn well, Deion Sanders said that you better go in there and you better show the utmost respect. This man won a Super Bowl. This man's got the ring. There's a reason that people keep calling this man at 40 years old and pulling him away from his family to get them into their facilities. And I think to his credit, even when he asked me the other day about the dance moves, you just got Joe Flacco with this weird reaction like he would give to his kid. I don't do that. And, you see, each guy kind of bending a little bit towards the other guy in hopes of, finding some sort of, relationship. And look, I think Joe's just about as honest as it can be. Look, if I'm the best guy, I'm going to play. But I do think Joe also understands, and this is more of how it goes. More of it is I shouldn't have to teach you how to do this. If you watch me do it, that is me teaching you how to do it.
Yeah, without question. Are you reading anything into the order that they're taking the reps at the mini camps or any of that, right? Or too early for that, you think?
I'm not reading anything into it, but I ideally think, and again, for me, I'm looking at this, it's, Shaduer versus Gabriel whenever it gets to them. Shaduer, I think you just want to keep it going well. And, eventually it's going to uptick, where he's going to start, jumping in, sooner as opposed to later in the rep order. And, I think for both rookies, you just want them hopefully to leave each day kind of with a positive mindset. There's some things I could have done better. You always want to have that, thought process of, this is something I want to make, things that you want to improve upon each and every day. But you certainly want them walking out each and every day, with their head held high. And I don't know about and I know a lot of people are saying, oh, well, it's done in the way they were acquired. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, they were all acquired within 6 weeks of each other. It's not like anybody had a leg up as far as, the Browns playbook necessarily other than anybody else, except for maybe Joe, because he'd already been here. But, for me, if my guy in this scenario is Shaduer, I have no issues with the way they're doing it, because you want to know what, if he can get a whole bunch of guys, and let's be honest, maybe practice squad guys, maybe guys that are going to play in Canada, maybe guys that'll play in the XFL. If you see Shaduer excelling with these guys, then maybe, the confidence level when he does start to actually get to play with, the brand name guys should, probably just go as well. But I think he's, it's working for Shaduer because, he has to go in there and he has to be the guy when he goes out there with the third string because, there's not much, elite talent. There's not much guys that are going to be here on the 53-man roster. And it looks to this point that Shaduer is doing everything he can to make this work.
All right, before we go to break, Myles Garrett asked today about accepting and taking on more of a leadership role.
I think the intensity and the urgency just has to take another level, take it another level up, rather. And, can't expect, someone else to do it on any other side of the ball or any other position room. Got to be the leader in the entire team. That's what's been laid out for me. Like you said, Jimmy said it, Kevin said it, and I'll take the reins and I'll be that guy.
And again, we've talked about it, Jeff. Leadership is on the field. It's not, pom-poms and yelling and telling guys what a great job they're doing. Different type of leader.
Well, I also think, and look, and this is also something that it's your personality. You're either this type of guy or you're not. And Myles, it's probably going to be more through his actions. It's going to be more through his play. But, let's also keep in mind he's 6'5", 275. So if something's going on that he doesn't like, and Myles just gives you a deep, dark stare, I think that hopes and tells these younger kids that, okay, that's unacceptable and we're just not going to do it again. But yeah, I mean, there's a changing of the guard here. And, with a guy like Nick Chubb, unfortunately leaving, we don't know how much longer a guy like Joel Bitonio is going to be here. This is, for Denzel Ward, for Myles Garrett, this is technically, their team and now. And, it doesn't have to be, done to a certain, written letter of the law. It's just got to be kind of being, the big guy in there and saying, look, it's 53-1. There is no other way this will ever succeed.
Jeff Lloyd from Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. Now I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. We'll hear more from Myles Garrett, Shaduer Sanders on the other side of the break. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd. Myles Garrett was asked, how do you assess if the team is getting better?
How do I assess it? Well, that's what minicamp and training camp is for. We assess it every single day. We're seeing our guys attack the practice field, how they come in and prepare from day to day. And if they don't get it, you make them get it. Like I said, being that leader, setting that standard, and showing guys how it's done instead of expecting them to know it. Guys come from different places, come from college, and you gotta push them in the right direction. You gotta guide them.
But do you think this team could be better than you thought it would be?
I know they'll be better. I know we will be better.
And Jeff, that was directed at the alignment between Andrew Berry with the team and not going in the right direction and all that. You look at this team on paper, I don't see a 3-win team, but they were a 3-win team.
Yeah, and look, I think the thing, certainly in the quarterback play, which is, I don't think anybody wants to say it, but, this team was stuck in to this relationship with, this quarterback, and it was never going anywhere. Now I think the fact that, he's kind of here, but he's not. It's, a reflection of, basically where this team is going now. So I think this team feels like they're not stuck in that rut anymore. It can be more talk about, the present, the future, and the guys that are here. And, having finally having a legitimate rookie class and having 7 young guys in here, all of whom, certainly various, degrees of success in college. And it kind of changed the landscape a little bit here. And, bringing some youth in here and moving on from, some older guys, gives a little bit more vibrant. And again, these younger guys, yeah, they watched whatever, but they didn't know what was going on. They weren't here. And these guys are just excited for their opportunity. And I think that's kind of where Miles said, hey, you got to push him. You got to get him to the right path. But, from everything you hear from this young rookie group, which, could be counted on for a lot of success, they seem, all bought in, all ready to go. And, just make sure you're listening to guys like Miles Garrett and Joe Latonio and Denzel Ward and those types. And, you should, kind of hit the ground running, so to speak.
Shaduer Sanders was asked just about where he is heading into today's mini camp.
Do I look more comfortable? I look more comfortable, huh? So, yeah, of course, I feel more comfortable here. I would say it's just a mindset, just an adjustment. You got to go and understand the situation that you're in and be able to approach that and get the best out of it. So life is just based on how you view different things. So you could view things as you're not getting reps in a negative way, or you could view it as, okay, when it's my time to get out there, let's be proactive and let's get warm, let's get going. So there's no excuses, because when you get out there, nobody cares how many reps you got. Whenever you get in the game, nobody cares if you took a snap before. Everybody cares about production. So that's the main thing. When you get out there, you got to be able to produce.
And again, the veterans that hear that, they love that. That's exactly how a rookie should look at it.
And this is, again, something that should have, never gotten to where the draft process did. You know what I'm saying? Deion Sanders, and one of the things with everything that he does is about respect. So, if his son was going to come in here and be acting any other way than the way he is, that certainly would probably be an issue, for Shaduer to deal with, at home and, certainly through on the phone with his father. And what I see, you see the smile, and, he could have, said, oh, I wish I would get more rep. He's just smiling away, excited with what he is. And I think he understands that, he feels that each day, maybe, because you want to basically climb that, he feels each day, each workout, maybe he's getting a little bit faster, a little bit better, progressing at a better, just starting to really feel comfortable with the way the process is going for himself. And, let's be honest, when's the last time we saw a Browns quarterback smile?
Well, he hasn't played a regular season game yet, so we'll withhold judgment on that. Before I let you go, what are you paying attention to the next couple of days as this mini camp continues? And then they shut it down, go away, and then when they come back, it's training camp.
The wide receiver room for me right now, look, Cedric Tillman, and I don't know what's going on, didn't practice today. Deontay Johnson did grace us with his presence. This is an opportunity for Deontay Johnson. He's got to realize that this is probably bigger for him than it is for the Browns, because he can still play. But the problem is he has so many issues with everything else. But Tillman not being out there certainly hurts. You're trying to get these quarterbacks going, and obviously you want everybody out there trying to help these quarterbacks within the plan to succeed. It's certainly a positional group right now. Look, I have the utmost confidence. I think that Jerry Jeudy can replicate what he did last year. But it'd be nice if it kind of just wasn't, Jerry the solo act, and maybe Jerry was part of a band.
Any chance at all they try to trade for a wide receiver or somebody
Look,
else?
there are teams, the Green Bay Packers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the New England Patriots. You can look at these teams and you can say, well, all right, I can find 6 wide receivers. And then you get to maybe like 7 or 8, and you're like, well, they'd be number 4 probably here with Cleveland. It's certainly something the Browns definitely, have to address. Look, the draft, it just wasn't the year for it. It just really wasn't not the year, and it was not a year where you were going to get a mid-round guy like in some years in the past. But yeah, there's an issue within that room, and Joe Flacco can, make some music, Pickett, it would be more leaning on the run game. But if you truly want to try to have some developmental plan for either Dylan Gabriel or Shaduer Sanders, you need definitely, hopefully Deontay Johnson can work it out within himself and stick around, but you definitely need at least another guy and certainly a healthy Cedric Tillman.
Jeff Lloyd, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
All the best, Dave. Anytime.
Jeff Lloyd, make sure you check him out. He is the host of Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. Really good Brown stuff. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.